Good morning. It's Wednesday, March 15th. And I don't know if many of you remember it, but that's a day that we used to have our taxes prepared by. But I'm not talking about taxes today. Today I want to talk about the big deal that is going on between the United States, Australia, and England, the UK. And this is a deal where the United States and England and Australia are going to work together to provide Australia with nuclear submarines. And those nuclear submarines, those three nations and many other of their compatriots feel it's necessary to defend the seas around Australia and other parts in the Indo-Asian area of the world from the Chinese. The Chinese who are growing a major naval fleet. But this deal between these three countries, it's not a simple deal. This is a deal that has been agreed upon to take 20 years to complete. Can you imagine that you have to get ready to defend an area of the world by using these nuclear submarines? And it will take you 20 years to complete this deal? And your adversary, in this case China, has only one country to worry about, themselves. So when you look at the magnitude of this deal, you can almost shake your head and say, how is this going to work? Because in 20 years, the governments of these three countries, US and UK and Australia, are going to change. Whereas the government of China is not going to change. Xi is the president for life, and that's what you're up against. You're up against somebody who has a future and can stick with it as long as he lives. So now what's really going to complicate this deal is that the creation of these submarines is one thing. Raising enough money to build these things is something entirely different. Australia's share of this plan is about $250 billion. I don't know what the US is prepared to put in, and I don't know what the UK is prepared to put in. But it's going to take time and effort. There's a lot of training that will go into this. Nuclear submarines are not just like regular submarines where the crews can be trained easily. It'll be difficult to transition the crews from a standard submarine to a nuclear submarine. So that's one area. It is training. Then there's maintenance. There's a lot of maintenance that's involved, or possible maintenance that may be involved with nuclear submarines. Now, nuclear submarines have a big advantage over ordinary submarines in that they can stay underwater for a long time. They don't need to be refueled constantly. They are lethal weapons. So standard submarines are not going to cut it for this deal. So in a joint statement on Monday, President Biden and Prime Minister Anthony Albanese of Australia and Rishi Sunak from the UK said the historic deal will build on past efforts by all three countries to sustain peace and prosperity around the world. So right now, the plan begins with the training of Australian personnel on US and UK subs. And they are also going to be trained on what goes on in the bases, in the submarine bases of the UK and the US. So the preparation has begun, but it's 20 years down the road before it'll be finished. And those crews, those Australian crews that are being trained, will get to the submarines in stages, right? And this year, in 2023, the U.S. nuclear-powered subs will visit the Australian ports, and they'll be joined 3 years later. Imagine that, 3 years later, by the British-owned nuclear subs. And then in 2027, the U.S. and the U.K. subs will start rotation at HMAS Stirling, an Australian military port near Perth. So now, that's 4 years from now, and Australia still doesn't have a nuclear sub. And then this base that they're going to train at requires, and that's why they're taking 4 years to get there, a multi-billion-dollar upgrade. And then in the early 2030s, pending, get this, pending Congress approval, Australia will buy 3 Virginia-class submarines from the U.S. with an option to buy 2 more. Now, they're going through all of this exercise, and we don't have Congress approval now. It's going to be approved in 2030, sometime in 2030s. How can we go ahead with a deal like this? This sounds asinine to me, because do we know for sure what Congress is going to look like in 10 years from now? We have no way of knowing. So how can we be sure this deal is ever really going to take place? And at the same time this is going on, the UK plans to build its first AUKUS nuclear submarine. And that's specific to Australia's dimensions, I guess. And this submarine, this new AUKUS submarine, will combine what they call Astute-class submarine with U.S. combat systems and weapons. So Australia's going to get submarines that are an amalgamation of the submarines that are being run by the U.S. and England. Does this make any sense to you? To me, it seems like this plan is a mishmash. I hope it works, and I hope they can do it faster than 20 years, but that's the plan they laid out. And then, early in the 2040s, Australia will deliver the first of its homemade AUKUS subs to its Royal Navy. So Australia is not even building this sub until the 2040s. Now, this plan seems straightforward. It's got a lot of different slots, but it's a straightforward plan, but it's a time. It's time. It's taking 20 years. And do you think that China is going to sit still and watch all this shit that's going on and not do something to protect themselves? I don't think so. So this plan doesn't really make a whole hell of a lot of sense to me. I don't know how we can guarantee that the conditions that exist in the world right now are going to exist in the world in 2040. Now, China has a political system that's not going to change. Xi is the leader, and unless something drastic happens in China, he's going to be the leader for a long, long time. Now, everybody who's watching this thing understands that Australia was under pressure to agree to this deal after years of inaction. And this proposal is an impressive piece of work, even though it's going to take a long time to complete it. An Australian professor from the University of South Wales said it's a roll of the dice, and they have just managed to thread the eye of the needle, coming up with something that looks plausible. But it's going to take 20 years, and that's a long time in a dangerous situation. So I'll leave you with that this morning. To me, it seems like a crazy plan. Bye.